This is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while. I'm gonna do an origin. As in, I'm going to do an origin story on Batman and the Ninja Turtles. Because there weren't already more than enough of those. No, I'm just kidding. The origin I'm gonna be talking about is the gnarly mighty band from Kansas. This band gives technical death metal a new meaning. The bass player has fingers made of iron. The guitar player's sweet picked so much that they don't even need to pick up a broom ever again. And the drummer, John Longstreth, whoa! In order to do Origin the proper justice that they deserve, I feel like I should show you a before and after example. The before part being what Origin sounds like, because after all, you can't review a band properly unless you cover how they sound. And the after part being what happens to me after I listen to Origin. So here's the before part. And here's the after part. No! Jimmy crack corn and I don't. Get me! Origin! A much warranted reaction, I would say. In 1998, Origin released their first EP, A Coming Into Existence. It has a really cool artwork, and it's produced really awesome too. It sounds better than their first album. In fact, it's heavier than their first album, it doesn't sound as boxy as their first album, and honestly, I like it better than their first album. The vocals have some interesting effects too. Like there's a vocal effect on Socia's side. I really wish they would have made that a staple in their music. As far as the guitar riffs go, there's a lot of low-end tremolo picking. So the guitars aren't as melodic or huge as their later stuff would be, but this EP is more focused on being absolutely brutal and crushing. I really like it, especially considering that this is the first death metal release to feature the Gravity Blast technique. And if you don't know what the Gravity Blast is, I'll show you.
Origin's 2000 debut album is 30 minutes long, and that's all you can take before your head containing coffee and green monster explodes, staining your furniture and your precious record collections. You might recognize this picture from your astronomy books. Of course, the Gravity Blast technique on the drums is featured in this album as it has become a staple in their sound. But this is also their most regular death metal album, as the production's a bit boxy and it doesn't sound as huge and melodic as their later stuff would be. Heck, it's not even as heavy as their later stuff, but it's a great introduction album nonetheless. Their second album, Informis, Infinitas, Inhumanitas, features brighter production, more complex songwriting, it's heavier and better produced than their first album, and it features a more realized version of the band. Why? Because there are samples from movies like Interview with the Vampire and Dogma. Humorous samples that bring out the humorous side of Origin. You know, contrasting the darkness and the serious of their songs. This sounds like the kind of band that you want to have drinks with. Anyway, this album's shorter than the first one, but the riffage and the complexity and the musicianship is definitely improved. And personally, I like the artwork a little better myself.
And then there's Echoes of Decimation! There's more focus on extreme riffing and soloing here, with the solos being riff arps, or arpeggios played really fast in a sweep-picking style. I love the vocals, I love the guitar sound, the production here is top-notch, everything's muddy the way I like it. My favorite on here is Staring from the Abyss. Not only is it the slowest song up here, but it's also the heaviest. And of course, there are samples from movies like Terminator 3, which add to the seriousness of misanthropic tunes, such as Endless Cure. Songs like Endless Cure and Cloning the Stillborn, they're what your brain will sound like after work or school or a hard day. Echoes of Decimation is exactly what's left after Origin leaves a concert hall. At the very end of the album are sound effects of wind. It's the wind of the Origin tornado, not the Wizard of Oz, Kansas tornado. The Origin tornado, which is bigger, badder, more destructive. You might be able to even call it the winds of change. In 2008, Origin released their masterpiece Antithesis, and it hit the ears of the underground metal world, just like it landed on the Earth. Coursing through the nebulas and lighting up the darkest twilights of the darkest moons. Coursing its way through the asteroid fields and the rings of Saturn. Lighting up every star and freezing over Jupiter. making the sun burn brighter than 1,000 stars and making the moon virtually non-existent, and then landing a massive crater on the planet Earth! This is Origin at their most realized and complex. They are going 110% here. And I was really surprised to hear that the title track is a slow song. Origin does slow songs? But ultimately, this makes the song more brutal and heavier than anything they've ever done in the past. I am of the personal belief that the drums sound clearer and brighter on the vinyl release. As far as the vinyl's concerned, I think that the vinyl artwork is way better than CD artwork. See, on the CD artwork, it's basically just a green xenomorph. And the artwork here, just fits the album better. See, look at that giant planet over top of the moon. Maybe that's an analogy for Origin topping the metal world. A technical death metal landmark got even better with this version. If Annihilation of the Wicked is the 2000's greatest technical death metal album, then this is not far behind it. Gotta love that diversity!
You see? This is what's at stake when you have bands as brutal as Origin roaming the earth. Take their album Entity. It's their first album on Nuclear Blast. Given that there are less band members this time around, it makes Entity have a tighter sound. It's a shorter album than Antithesis, but it's also brighter in its production and it has more of a lush atmosphere. The complexity in the songwriting is still there, and the bass playing is arguably better than it was on Antithesis. Given that the songs themselves are shorter and the album isn't quite as long as Antithesis, the impact isn't quite as hard, but it's still a satisfying sequel nonetheless.
Their newest album is Omnipresent. It's a great album, but look at that artwork. See, this looks like the Devil's Snare from the Harry Potter movies. And see that little thing in the middle right there? Looks like a little gingerbread man. He's just like...
Throw Fulcrum Apex sounds kind of like it's got a lot of Suffocation influences, you know what I mean? With the guitar riffs especially. In fact, most of the album sounds like it's Suffocation influenced. And on top of that, the same guitar effect that was used on Manifest Desolate sounds like the same guitar effect that was used on Death to Forgive Us to Suffer. But there are also certain songs on here that sound like they have a lot of punk and grind influences as well. I love when this band gets fun like that. The guitar tone is really gutsy, kind of like Meshuggah. Now, one of the drawbacks to this album is that the drums are a bit too loud. Sometimes it drowns out everything else. However, as far as the production goes, it sounds fine. On this album, they kind of take a break from being the fastest band on the earth, and they play a lot of slow songs on here too, such as Unattainable Zero. Jason Kaiser from Skinless does the vocals on this album. He sounds really good. His vocals are slower and deeper than James Lee's were. Plus, the vocals have this gore grind type of feel to them. Echoes of Decimation had the goal of being machine gun fast. This album doesn't have as much of that. In fact, the Gravity Blast is hardly used on this album. So it's still a good album, but not quite as powerful as their previous two. For 36 minutes, you have nothing to lose. Origin is just as brutal as ever.
Dorothy, you were right to leave Kansas, because if that tornado didn't rip your guts in half and transform you into a new species, then Origin would have. Human scum, bow down to the fastest band on the earth.